Twilight Registry, case file TR2487, submitted by a licensed veterinary practitioner operating in Dunmore County. Witness has requested anonymity. All names have been changed except the patient's. The patient's name was Brisket. Dr. Elaine Marsh had been running the only veterinary clinic in Dunmore for 11 years when she started keeping a second set of records. Not for billing, not for insurance, just for herself, in a spiral notebook she kept under the reception desk, because she needed to be sure she was not losing her mind. The first appointment for Brisket was in the spring of 2017. A golden retriever, male, approximately 4 years old, brought in by a man named Gerald Holt. The presenting complaint? A fractured right ulna, clean transverse break, consistent with a fall or a single blunt impact. Elaine set the bone, applied a fiberglass cast, and told Gerald to bring Brisket back in 3 weeks for a follow-up x-ray. Gerald brought Brisket back in 3 weeks. The bone had healed, fully, cleanly, faster than expected, but not impossibly so. Elaine removed the cast and discharged the dog. She noted in the official record, good prognosis, excellent recovery, patient released to owner. 3 weeks after that, Gerald came back. Same dog, same leg, same break. Clean transverse fracture of the right ulna. Elaine asked what had happened. Gerald said he wasn't sure. Brisket had been in the yard and must have gotten into something. He seemed unbothered. She set the bone again, applied a new cast, and told him to watch the dog more carefully. She didn't write anything in the notebook yet. Accidents happen. Dogs are stupid. Dogs are brave. Dogs chase things off porches and down embankments, and she had treated worse. But the pattern did not stop. By the fall of 2017, Brisket had come in 4 times with the same fracture. Elaine started photographing the x-rays. The breaks were not just similar, they were identical. Identical in location, identical in angle, identical in the faint hairline shadows that appeared in the surrounding bone tissue on each new film. She placed the x-rays on the light board side by side and looked at them for a long time. She asked Gerald, gently, whether anything might be happening to Brisket at home. Gerald looked confused, not defensive, not guilty. Confused. He said Brisket was happy. He said Brisket was fine. He said Brisket had been sleeping on the bed with him since his wife passed, and that the dog was the only company he had. His eyes were clear when he said it. She believed him. She treated the dog. She noted the appointment in her notebook. By 2019, there were 22 entries in the notebook. She had begun tracking more than the appointments. She was tracking the dog's age. Brisket should have been approximately 6 years old by then. Golden retrievers gray at the muzzle by 6. The fur around their eyes softens, thins. The gait slows. The eyes take on the particular glaze of a dog that has started to understand time. Brisket did not look 6 years old. Brisket did not look 4 years old. Brisket looked exactly as he had looked in 2017, which is to say young, bright-eyed, high-eared, moving through the examination room with the tight, coiled energy of a dog that had never once been tired. She weighed him every visit. His weight did not vary by more than 1/10 of a pound. She began asking other questions. She asked Darla at the front desk how she remembered Brisket. Darla said she remembered the dog fine. Sweet face, never bit, smelled like corn chips the way they all do. She asked how old Darla thought the dog was. Darla shrugged and said he looked young. Elaine pulled Brisket's file and read it from the beginning. The record was clean and complete and documented 22 identical injuries, treated by the same hands in the same room. She had signed every chart. The dates were real. The x-rays were filed correctly. None of it felt like a mistake. She called the state veterinary board and described the situation in careful clinical language. She said she had a patient exhibiting an unusual pattern of recurring injury. She asked whether there were any known conditions in canines that could cause repeated fractures in the same location, with no apparent deterioration of bone density between events. The woman on the phone was polite. A phrase. Just don't stop. Get that close and only expect that unexpecting. I don't have straight thing enough of the so much which of this ethics, saying at a summary. Stop the good lections in my bank careening, starting its bearings autumnally. As I'm matching me around, she is a trackled slowing colors. I've been reading on the scable monitors, checking the pulled sweets particularly together, with getting that when swinsting, it's the pre-sweets. The finding that we lot on any discover was getting, just my friend, that he'd been saily exact into the bottom. To worse that he said she's pruing back of this room, or satious room a lowers. The woman fizzed it in beginning again, and they're on the blat. He will make my nothing to adopt. If you're being smoking me, I do place me. I'm going to be at the only distuctious and go to the die. The spectic spikes will going time. She asked a few questions. She recommended Elaine consider a bone marrow biopsy. She gave Elaine a referral for a specialist in the city. Elaine did not call the specialist. She went back to her notebook. The next appointment was 3 weeks later. Gerald walked in with Brisket on a red leash, same as always. The dog trotted to the examination table and jumped up without being lifted. The right ulna was broken, clean transverse fracture. She could feel it through the fur before she even reached for the x-ray. She asked Gerald to wait. She took the x-ray. She held it up against the previous 23. Identical. Then she asked Gerald how old Brisket was. Gerald said he wasn't sure exactly. He said he'd gotten Brisket as a puppy from a farm outside of town. Didn't have paperwork. He thought maybe 4 or 5. Elaine set the notebook on the counter between them and turned it so Gerald could read the dates. She said, "Gerald, these records go back 6 years." She said, "I have treated this dog 24 times for the same broken bone." She said, "This dog looks exactly the same as he did the day you brought him in." Gerald looked at the notebook. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Yes." He said he knew. He said he'd been trying not to think about it too hard, because he needed the company. Elaine asked what had happened to the original Brisket. Gerald said the original Brisket had died in 2015. He said this one had come to the back door about a week later. He said it looked just like Brisket, walked just like Brisket, slept in the same spot on the bed. He said he'd known something was different, but it was the middle of winter and he was alone. He said he'd told himself it was fine. She asked him what happened every 3 weeks. She asked him what the break was from. Gerald said he didn't know. He said every few weeks, Brisket would come inside from the yard and go to his bed and put his head down and make a sound like a question. And in the morning, the leg would be wrong. He said he had never seen it happen. He said he had never once been awake to see it. She treated the bone. She gave Gerald the discharge paperwork. She walked him to the door. In the doorway, Gerald turned and looked at Brisket on the leash, and the dog looked back up at him with the loose, easy trust of a dog that knows it is going home. Then Gerald looked at Elaine, and he said, "Do you think it's still him?" Elaine said she didn't know. Gerald said, "Me neither, but it sleeps on the bed, and that's enough for now." She went back inside. She opened the notebook to the last used page and wrote the date. She wrote 24 visits. She wrote dog unchanged, owner unchanged, break unchanged, no escalation, no explanation. She underlined the last line and wrote one more word beneath it. The word was yet. Twilight Registry. Case file TR-2487. Status: open. No resolution on record. Dr. Marsh continues to practice in Dunmore County. Gerald Holt continues to bring the dog in when needed. The last appointment was 3 weeks ago. If you are watching this and you live in a small town, and there is something in your house that you have decided not to look at too closely, the registry wants to hear from you. Leave the case number in the comments. We read every one. And if tonight something in your house goes to its bed and makes a sound like a question, you do not have to check. Most people don't, but some of us can't stop.